The U.S. dollar is a terribly flawed currency. I mean, the U.S. is the largest debtor in the history of the world. I'm not the only person who knows that. I'm not the only person who knows that that's going to cause problems someday. That eventually there's a big problem going to develop. Um, I can remember when the pound sterling a few decades ago lost its status. It caused big problems for the world, and especially for Britain, and the British is going to cause a lot of turmoil, just as every other currency has caused turmoil when it changed.
The United Kingdom's pound sterling was the primary reserve currency of much of the world in the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century. However, by the middle of the 20th century, the United States dollar had become the world's dominant reserve currency. Over the past few years, the status of the US dollar as the global reserve currency has come into question at times. Millionaire and veteran investor in the US markets, Jim Rogers offers a critical perspective on the US dollar, highlighting its significant flaws. He points to the United States' unprecedented position as the largest debtor in global history as evidence of these shortcomings. After years of shocks, including the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, countries are reevaluating their trading partners based on economic and national security concerns. Central banks are already moving to diversify their assets and minimize their reliance on dollars. According to IMF data, the dollar made up about 71% of foreign reserves in 1999. But by 2020, the percentage had dropped to 59%. According to Jim Rogers, no currency has maintained its position as the top currency for more than 100 to 150 years throughout history. While the US dollar has held this status for a significant period, Rogers foresees potential challenges ahead. This is the first year that the survey conducted by Swiss investment bank UBS has indicated that more than half of central bank reserve managers expect the dollar to lose its privileged status. The FT notes that the dollar has slid 5% so far this year and is trading close to its lowest ever level against a basket of the world's major currencies. Rogers highlights the historical precedent of currency transitions and the challenges they entail. The impending shift away from the US dollar prompts uncertainty and underscores the need for clarity regarding the future of the global monetary system. Now let's break down what this all means, of course, with Jim Rogers.
Historically, those kind of situations, as Ray points out, have often led to problems. No currency has remained as the number one currency more than 100, 150 years ever in history. The U.S. has been there. It's been there a long time. And the U.S. is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. I don't particularly like saying that. I'm an American citizen. But I own a lot of U.S. dollars, by the way. But I can see that eventually there's a big problem going to develop. I can remember when the pound sterling a few decades ago lost its status. It caused big problems for the world, and especially for Britain and the British Empire, the British Commonwealth in those days. And it caused problems for the world, because if you have a transition from one currency to something else, the transition causes problems. And as I said, I own a lot of US dollars, but I know that with the transition, when it becomes serious, it's going to cause a lot of turmoil, just as every other currency has caused turmoil when it changed. The US debt continues to go up every day, and eventually the people already, in fact, there are many countries now looking for something to compete with the US dollar. I don't know what it's going to be yet. If you know, please don't announce it. I want to buy. I
Yes.
want to buy a lot of them because I don't know what it's going to be yet. Whenever there's a transition from the world's reserve currency to something else, there's always turmoil. There was when the pound sterling lost its status. There was a lot of turmoil in the world. You may not, well, you were a child, but many people knew about the turmoil. It caused lots of problems in the world, and that's going to happen again. When the US dollar starts losing its status, it's going to cause a lot of turmoil for a lot of people, a lot of economies, and a lot of companies. Has to. And as I say, the easy thing would be if we know where to go. You know, when the sterling started losing its status, people knew, the US dollar. We can move to the US dollar, and they did. But when the US dollar starts losing its status, and it's starting now, but I don't know where to go. I don't know a new competing international currency. Yes, it could be, should be China, but the Chinese currency is not convertible. I mean, you can't buy and sell it like you can buy and sell the euro or the Australian dollar or something. So the renminbi cannot be the world's currency as long as it's a blocked currency.
Right.
So I don't know what it's going to be. And if
A potential economic crisis may prompt a global shift in economic power, diverting attention from the US dollar towards other currencies, such as gold and silver. China's economy is in a funk, and people are rushing out to buy gold as a safe haven asset to hedge against economic uncertainties, sending prices of the precious metal to record highs. Other central banks are also loading up on gold. The World Gold Council wrote in a report last week that big gold buyers included China, Turkey, and India. In all, the world's central banks bought 290 tons of gold in the first quarter of this year, the strongest start to any year on record, the WGC said. Rogers acknowledges the complexity of the transition, rejecting simple fixes like returning to the gold standard. While he notes silver's historical significance and potential revival, he believes neither silver nor gold can fully address current monetary issues. Let's shift our focus to a video.
China's a huge economy, a huge everything, but it's not so simple to make the Chinese renminbi the world's competing currency yet. I don't see something else. Logically, it should be the renminbi, but there are many reasons that it cannot be yet. Maybe someday, probably will be someday, but someday is not next week. I said before, and I'll say again, when the world moves from a reserve currency, from international currency to something else, it always causes turmoil and problems. Go back and read about when the pound sterling lost its status over a few decades. You know, in 1924, the pound sterling and the British economy were number one. There was no number two. But 50 years later, 1976 to be exact, Britain went bankrupt. The IMF had to fly into Heathrow Airport to bail them out. They couldn't pay their bills. This happened in 50 years. It's not the first time the world has had this problem. It used to be the French franc and the Spanish peseta, etc. It's a Dutch guilder once upon a time. All these things have happened before. It's not a simple transition. If the Chinese currency were completely convertible right now, it would be, it would happen.
It will be clearer.
But the Chinese currency is not, if it's going to happen, it's going to be lots of turmoil. Always has been, for many reasons, and it will be again. As I say, if you know the answer, and I can see you don't know either.
That's why I'm asking you.
But if you know it, please tell me. No, I can tell you lots of things. And there are many people, lots of gold bugs who think it will be gold. But gold has always had problems too throughout history. Silver, silver has been the international currency more than gold had. You remember Jesus Christ? He was sold for 30 pieces of silver. He was not sold for 30 pieces of gold because silver was the money in that part of the world then. The U.S., when the U.S. was established, it was based on a silver standard. The first American Currency Act, 1792 or whatever it was, silver was the basis for the U.S. dollar. Now that changed, but I'm just saying, throughout history, silver has been an extremely important medium of exchange, might be again, but neither silver nor gold can solve our problem now because there are too many problems with silver and gold.
You may wonder how the dollar keeps plugging along despite U.S. monetary malfeasance. Several factors underpin the greenback, chiefly its role as the global reserve economy. The biggest problem is the U.S. government's borrowing and spending. China has led the way. The People's Bank of China has increased its gold hoard for 17 straight months. There are cracks in the foundation of dollar dominance. Could Chinese gold be the straw that breaks the dollar's back? We value your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments.